Ingram,
Yep.
King Taylor,
Here.
McGuire,
Here.
Patterson,
Here.
Rector,
Here.
Storr,
Here.
Summers,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Thorsland, Tinsley,
Present.
Fascispati,
Here.
Wolkin, Young,
Here.
Clemens, Clifford, Cowart,
Present.
Rosales.
Here. Before we move on to item number 3, there is an adjustment here at the approval of the agenda. So before we do that, I would like to call upon Goss to give us the 5-year financial forecast item.
Yeah, I don't want to give the forecast. I will leave that to Tammy, but we do need to remove it, so that's item 8.4, technically A, but that's the only thing under 4, so we need to remove that. That'll get pushed to the county board next week.
Okay, so remove item 8.4 off of your agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda and the addendum?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Keen, Esri second. All those, discussion? None? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the minutes of March 12th, 2019. Moved by, I'm sorry, Prangel, second by Rector. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Good. I was going to say Vashispati instead of Prangel. Okay. Public participation. There's a lot of public, but I don't see anybody eagerly giving me a slip. So thank you for coming out, by the way, all of you out there. Board comments. I do believe we have one board comment by Chris Storr. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call the board's attention to a notable event. After only 8 years of study and research and writing and holding down a full-time job and raising a family, my colleague, Ms. King Taylor, successfully defended her dissertation on March 30th and has now earned the right to be known as Dr. Tanisha King Taylor.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Dr. King. Well, thank you very much for that announcement, Chris. Now we'll move on to Mr. Patterson, Social Justice and Services.
All right, Justice and Social Services. First item on the agenda is Community Coalition presentation. We have Tracy Parsons here. You want to take over?
All right, so those of you that may know, it's kind of a joke that I'm up here with the technology, so that's what we're doing here. All right, so how do you get this to the full screen? All right. So good evening. Thank you for allowing me a few moments to talk about some work that's taking place in the community that I think is pretty impactful and really important as a community, solving some of our community's most difficult social and economic issues. And so since I see a number of new faces that I don't know, I'll kind of do some quick and dirty history. My name is Tracy Parsons. I am the Community Relations Manager for the City of Champaign. And I facilitate this group that we call the Champaign County Community Coalition. Our community in 2009 experienced what you see playing out all across the country, in cities across America, an officer-involved shooting of an unarmed black male, 15-year-old black male in our circumstance. It, as you see again playing out across the media and the news, tore our community at the seams. We had protests, we had march, we had just a lot of concerned community members as this incident took place. I'd like to go the next step, though, to talk about and pat ourselves on the back a little bit as a community. So instead of allowing this incident to really just completely tear us apart at our core and move us into our groups against one another, we came together in a, I think, pretty unique and interesting way. And I can say that a few years into this work, as I travel around the state and around the country talking about community coalition, how we've been able to put this in place. And there's a lot of communities really struggling to figure out how you get all of our community partners at the table. So we had a series of community meetings. Our largest one was at one of the local hotels. We had about 400 community members there. We took almost 50 pages of notes about what we needed to do, how we didn't want this to happen again in our community. And so there was a small group of us working on this to help formulate what we heard from our community members. Now, the young man that was shot in the incident and killed represented a group of students that he was not the only one in that scenario. And so what I mean by that, you had a 15-year-old African-American male. It was during the middle of the day when he should have been at school. He wasn't at school. There was a misidentification by someone who saw him out on the street that preempted this incident. Law enforcement was called, came on the scene, and the shooting took place. So when we learned more about this young man, he's a 15-year-old man, young boy. He had lost his mom a couple of years before this to a bout with cancer. Young guy received no mental health support. He didn't receive any counseling. The family was really torn apart by the mom's passing. He started bouncing around from family member to family member, started having problems in school, in the community, and in the neighborhood. And when we started looking at that, we saw that, again, he's not an isolated youth. So while we were meeting as a community to talk about what we wanted to do, we realized there were a lot of Kiwan Carringtons in our community. This year will mark the 10-year time frame of this scenario. So what came out of our meetings and our groups is the Champaign County Community Coalition. It's a collaborative gathering of community partners. So in my 25 plus years of doing community work, it's been able to sustain itself, I think, in a pretty positive way. So it's the one space that I'm aware of where community partners, individuals, are at the table with governmental partners, our park districts, our education school systems, our university, our community college, our mental health providers, our mental health, our funders, the Mental Health Board, United Way, community organizations, law enforcement. All of us are at the table regularly to talk about community, social, and economic issues impacting those non-traditional kids and those kids that may be struggling in school and in our communities. So our mission is really simple: to lead the process of collaborating to work to address this population, their families, and it has kind of blossomed in a really nice way community-wide. So through the county, just so you're aware, the sheriff is an active participant in the community coalition. Our new county administrator is on the executive committee. The head of the Regional Planning Commission, the head of the Mental Health Board, and the state's attorney are all with us. Those are kind of your county connections. But again, someone from the chancellor's office, the president of Parkland College, the head of the parks, city government are all there participating. So we have a monthly meeting. We meet on the second Wednesday of each month at the Champaign Public Library. Our next meeting is tomorrow. And as we've formed this work over the last couple of years, we've really began to start the process to organize ourselves in 5 different areas. And let me just get this stuff, these PowerPoints, right? Okay, so the first area is around police-community relations. We've got a long history in our community as well across the state and across the country of challenged relationships in low-income minority communities, African-American communities, and Latino communities. Our community is no different. And so police-community relations is one of our priority areas where we look at how we improve police-community relations. How do we connect our community members in these areas with police? How do we get police meeting them out in the community, getting out of their cars, and just building connections, as well as breaking down, again, some of those historical trusts and issues that revolve really around law enforcement and those identified communities. I wanted to just share this with you really quick because I believe we have really phenomenal law enforcement organizations here in our community. I'm not just saying that as they are partners, but the fact that, again, our law enforcement leadership is there with us in the trenches working on these tough issues, there to address community issues and concerns. So I put this 21st Century Policing document up there, that came out through the Obama administration a couple of years ago. And so almost all of the points on there we have here locally. I believe Urbana Police is the only one that doesn't have body cameras at this point, and I know they are in that part of the process. We have review boards, we have youth academies, we have use of force review. Anytime our law enforcement organizations are using force, whether that's their guns, their pepper spray, they have to document that, and that is also reviewed to make sure that's appropriate. So we made tremendous ground in the last 10 years and really the last few around our law enforcement group, but there's still much more to do. Our second priority area is community engagement. So as governmental organizations and leadership organizations, far too often we make decisions that are top down. So with our community engagement, we're looking at how do we get out into neighborhoods? How do we meet with our citizenry to build, bridge, connect, break down the barriers, hear from them, let them tell us what their needs are versus us telling them what their needs are. And so our community engagement part is really important. We have something that we call Walk as One. So these are, we hope to have them quarterly, where we go out to different areas, different neighborhoods as a community. We go out as coalition partners to talk about needs, pass out information, hear from the residents, again, hoping to break down through some of those barriers. One of the ones, this is a picture of one of the ones from last fall where we went to a couple of the trailer parks that are primarily Latino communities to hear and talk about their needs, pass information out. With ICE coming into our community and some of those things, we've got some real challenges with our Latino community right now and building and connecting. And so we've just been addressing that through the coalition as a supporter, but helping giving light to the needs of our Latino community members. Our monthly meetings, as I mentioned to you, are held at Champaign Public Library. Right now, we're having about 100 community members are meeting out. They're fantastic spaces with really positive energy spaces. A lot of collaborations and partnerships have happened real organically, whether they're coalition initiatives or just partners and organizations working together. It is a fantastic meeting. It's open to the community. I'd invite you to come out and just check out a meeting and participate. Our neighborhood and community meetings, we had in 2018 over 30 different events in communities all across our neighborhoods, again, where we want law enforcement, organizational members to come out and be part of these neighborhoods and communities. I wanted to just point this one out. There's an area in South East Urbana area that we've been putting some intentional focus around. It was one of the highest areas for calls for service with Urbana Police. It is an area where there's been a number of shooting incidents. So we really just came in, started having community-based meetings, meeting with, this is the Silver Water area, getting neighbors to meet each other, one another, and all those types of things. And so we went the entire summer last year without any shootings in the area and had a number of just really positive community events. Last year, they had an organized Halloween trick-or-treating thing for the first time ever. It was just fantastic. We've been doing a lot of work around trauma and mental health trainings and events. So last year, we had over 83 different trainings. Over 647 different folks in our community went through our trainings. Obviously, youth development is really important, and we're doing a lot of work with youth and around youth. We've got an unbelievable partnership with the Champaign County Mental Health Board and working in connection with the Don Moore Boys and Girls Club to look at summer activities and programs and initiatives to get as many youth as possible in constructive activities. We know that idle time, idle mind for young people is the time when trouble can happen. And so just really quick, I'm not going to go through all of this, but we had 623 youth participating in educational programs, cultural, arts-based programs, employment and training, male-specific programming, female-specific programming, really just wonderful things that are happening in our community for youth to have them as engaged as possible. And just a couple quick photos. I wanted to put this one up just really quick. It's called our Goal Getters Initiative. We had some incidents with groups of young people forming gangs and cliques and those kind of things, and really a lot of negative behavior in the community and at schools. And we formed this group in Champaign last year, and right now we're looking to put something like this together in Urbana for this summer, as we're seeing some similar incidents. But with the Goal Getters Initiative, we had 16 young men who are struggling in school and in the community, having a lot of difficulty. We brought them in for regular meetings, field trips, educational things. 15 out of the 16 young men finished, no involvement with law enforcement. So we've continued that program through the school year, and it's really having an impact on a difficult population. Over the last couple of years, since 2015, we've seen an increase in our community violence, gun-related shooting incidents. So community violence has risen to its own priority area. We've got some fantastic initiatives, really looking at this work from a proactive place. So we have a project that we call CU Fresh Start that works with those individuals that we know are involved, most likely to be involved in gun violence as victims or perpetrators, and trying to engage them to change the course of their actions and activities. We had a really big town hall meeting last June in Douglas Park, overflow, and we've got some work that's come out of that we're doing. So we're collecting data in new and different ways, and since I've been involved in this kind of work with law enforcement, with our Fresh Start initiative, really looking at times of day, the incidents, the locations, so that we help with strategy around effective policing, community engagement, and bridging those things together. The final area that we've added is what we call mutual advocacy. So when you have a group like this, you have a lot of folks in the community that say, why are you guys not taking on this issue? This is one that you should be doing. And so what we've looked at is how we not duplicate services, but support organizations and entities that are doing work in this area. So I like to talk about like the homeless, for example. Obviously, we have a real serious need and for engagement and support around our homeless population and services and supports. So there are a number of organizations in the community already working on this issue. So it's important that the coalition supports those works versus trying to create programs and projects around the homeless. So I just wanted to use that as an example. I've just got a couple of things that have started over the last couple of years that really represent partnership and collaboration. We've taken on the topic of race directly through the coalition. Our meeting tomorrow will be focused completely on race relations in Champaign County, how we strengthen it, what we're doing well. We've done, over the past few months, some really interesting talks with high school age youth, We've been to almost all of the high schools in the county, just having conversations around race. How does race impact our students? What role does it play? We were pleasantly surprised at how in tune with race as a subject and a topic it is for our students. So we're going to be releasing that information in the report tomorrow. So I just wanted to, thanks again for letting me come out, have a few moments on your agenda. I know I threw a lot out real quick. And so that's the Community Coalition that the county is a full participant and partner in, and I think having a positive impact on our community. So
Personally, Tracy, I would like to thank you for coming out and the great work that you're doing in the community. I've been with the Champaign County Coalition for a while, but due to my new responsibilities, I haven't been able to attend. But I'm pretty sure that Darlene is doing a swell job in the executive group, which also sponsors your efforts and initiatives. So continue with the good work, and we hope that, I believe we have a representative. Kyle, aren't you part of that liaison to the coalition?
Charles, I am.
Charles? Okay.
Yes.
I knew we had one. Okay,
So, hello.
sure enough. So
That's
remember,
too right.
tomorrow, library.
Yeah, let me say this much. So I already have been attending these meetings. So since I joined the county board, I guess it's official, but already have been attending. But can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Okay,
I mean, I'm
so
not, go ahead.
is it okay, Kyle? Can I ask a question? You don't know? So you mentioned about this being a social and economic issue across the nation. So my question is, what model did you guys use, since apparently this is across the nation? The resource, the book information, is it where you get this model from that we are
well,
wanting?
I think some of the things we've looked at from just other models around the specific areas and issues. The coalition really kind of came together, as I said, really from a community mandate to let's not let this happen again in our community, to have an incident like this. And so the first couple of years, I mean, we had meetings and there would be 10 people there and 5, and we probably questioned if this was the route to go. But I think the community violence issue has allowed us to kind of have a connecting point. So that's why I made sure I shared with you all the other things that we're doing outside of community violence. But we really are a community state leader as it relates to the coalition and our work around community violence. Again, I've spoken all over around how do you get law enforcement at the table? How do you get them to be in those tough spaces where they're taking criticism, for example, or not open about policy and data? I mean, our law enforcement is extremely open, as you've been to the meetings. So we start off each one of our meetings with our law enforcement leaders talking about trends, activities, challenges, opportunities every month. And all of the chiefs and sheriff are there every month. And so it is a testament to our law enforcement leadership, but also the space we've created through the coalition for a number of partnerships and projects to take place. And so this is Champaign County's model, you know.
So excellent job you doing.
Thank
You and the coalition. Whether I'm on the county board or not, I'm here for you. So
Thank you.
that's it.
Anybody else have any questions? Stephanie?
Has the U of I participated in any formal way?
Yeah, so the Chancellor's Office is part of the executive committee. The police chief from the U of I sits on the executive committee. The Dean of Students has been an integral part of what we're doing. So yes, I think the university sees us as an extension of how to help bridge the town gown types of issues and activities. We've had some good projects where we've been taking students up on campus. So there's a lot of good things that's been happening with our university.
Chris?
Thank you, Kyle. Mr. Parsons, how have things changed with regard to interaction with youth, such as happened 10 years ago? You mentioned that the young man had lost his family and had mental health needs. do you feel like, or how has the community filled in to address those needs, and what sort of success do you think that they're having?
So I like to describe our community as a resource-rich community. What I mean by that, we have programs for almost any topic, subject that there comes in. The problem is we're still too siloed, right? And we still have too many mandates from our funders and things that make collaboration and partnership difficult. So that's where our opportunity is as a community, and hopefully the coalition can keep pushing the envelope. But we have services. We're more aware of our youth. I shared with you the Go Getter initiative. I'm not sure that could have happened before because it was law enforcement, it was the schools, it was the community. We've been bringing in the formerly incarcerated population to meet and mingle with these young kids to hopefully deter them from going down that route. And they can say, these are the mistakes I've made, don't go this route. So having the coalition allows us to be much more flexible and creative. So, for example, you have to pass a background check to be active in the schools. So they can't bring in the formerly incarcerated population. We can do that through community-based initiatives, through the coalition. So I just offer that as an example that we've had some progress. You know, we talk a lot about how do we measure our impact and trying to do some evaluation around that so we can tell our story. And I don't want to act like it's all solved. I'm just saying I believe we have a good place to work from going forward. So.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It's good to see what you guys are doing. I guess my question is, you know, which programs do you think are going to be sort of your focus going forward, if there are some in particular? And I guess what are sort of the resource constraints on your organization that you think, you know?
So we are not strapped from a resource place. We're not in a position where funding is an issue. I'm pretty comfortable saying that when people raise the issue, we don't have enough money to address that, to disrupt that thought. And so if we come together and talk about who has resources for this or who can help provide this for a part of the project, then we can address it. And so we've done a number of things through piloting. So the Mental Health Board money becomes really important for us because we're able to pilot projects and initiatives that have very small dollar. So $5,000, $7,000 can go a long way with helping a community organization or an individual who has an idea or a project. And then the other part of your question around how to prioritize, I think they're all equally intertwined and just as important. So each day is crazy with expectation on trying to address all the issues happening in our 5 priority areas. So, and I'll personally I'm charged from the youth, right? That's our future, that's our community, next generation, right? So what we can do to engage, support, disrupt, hold accountable, make sure opportunities are here for our young people, all of our young people. I think we've done a good job as a community for a certain population of students, but we've got a number of students from families that are not part of our traditional systems and structures. And so a lot of kids we're working with through the coalition, it's really cool because their behavior and their attitudes have gotten them kicked out of things, right? So the Boys and Girls Club may not be an option for them because they've been there and their behavior was too disruptive, so they've gotten booted out of that, right? Great work at the Boys and Girls Club, but now we can create something to reach these kids. So that's a long answer to your question, but a way of addressing it.
If I can ask a follow-up question, you talked about these pilot programs. Are the youth that you're serving sort of involved in setting up these pilot programs and sort of giving input into what programs get tested?
Yeah, some programs we've done a good job of surveying and getting feedback. Again, I talked about the evaluation of how we do that, how we get systems in place so that we're receiving data, collecting information. It's an ongoing thing, right? Like, how do you do it better, more effectively? How do you, again, a lot of the kids that we're approaching haven't had success, so trust, connection, engagement are very, very challenging things. and an important part of what we do.
Anybody else? And what time is the coalition meeting tomorrow?
3:30 to 5, second Wednesday of each month at the Champaign Public Library.
All right,
And it's an open community meeting, so you don't have to have an invitation, or you just received it right there. So.
All right, Jim?
Thank you. I just want to thank Tracy for being here. Tracy was at the reentry meeting. The Youth Assessment Center was listed in your list, and I'm thankful that we can be part of what you're doing and continue to do that, and hopefully do more. So thank you.
Yeah, well, the Youth Assessment Center is really critical part of our community. When you talk about catching young people that are making low-level offenses and doing things that kids do, we don't want that to become part of their history or be something that can be a long time, detriment for them. So our partnership with the Assessment Center is really, really important and critical, and I'm pushing to get more out of the Assessment Center, to be honest with you. My friend Delitzo back there knows that, but really, it is a very important part, and the more we can get in services and programs, and then understanding the dynamic of why these kids are making some of these decisions is critical for the back end stuff. So this is our community violence issue, and I'll stop here, is not a Chicago, St. Louis, big city issue. These are our kids from our community, and so when you see or on the newspaper or in the news a young person, I always talk to a school person or a social worker that said, I had that kid when he was 10. He wasn't that kid, right? I hear that every time. And so I want to get that on record too. So,
Tracy, how is the school system involved in the program that you're talking? Because most of the kids are dropouts that you all are working with. How is the school system going to offer programs for the kids? Like, used to be all kind of programs for the kids to do to keep them engaged in school. Now it's just, it's nothing there at school. No music and art. No stuff like auto training or home economics and stuff like that, where the kids will be engaged and wanted to go to school. So are you all talking about putting programs in the school where that maybe they could
yeah,
feel invested?
so if you don't mind, I would like to correct you a little bit. I think there are a lot of initiatives in the schools. We don't have as many vocational programs as we need, so I agree with you there. And we are looking at creative ways of creating programs and services that can't be done through the school, out of the school. Where I'm really pushing our school districts is to really talk about who are the students directly and specifically that are not succeeding and having trouble. So we have to say in our community that black kids and black families are the ones that are really struggling in our school districts, that are the highest level of discipline referrals and suspensions and expulsions, not in the gifted programs, not succeeding academically. And I'm generalizing when I say that, but the data is quite clear. And so I think through the coalition, we've been consistent from day one that we are talking about what we have to do for our black kids and our black families. As we've seen our Latino population increase over the last decade as well, it requires some intentional work and supports and services for that population, or we will see the same thing in the short term, that Latino kids will be struggling at the same level that black kids are. And so, yes, the schools are at the table with us, and I mentioned earlier about restrictions or problems that systems have. So the districts are really restricted on how much they can bring community members in and what community members and what they fund, how those kind of things. So that's where, as a community and through the coalition, we can help support our schools. It really is key and important that, and we have good school systems. We just have to do much more intentional work. So.
Anybody else? All right, thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
All right, we have the monthly reports, which are available online. No other business, so pass it on.
Okay, now we move on to number 8, policy, personnel, and appointments. Mr. Young?
Thank you, Chair Rosales. What I write down? Okay, A, new business. Number 1, the appointment and reappointment under the county executive appointment. A, the county executive appointments for all locations and names. We stressing that under all location and name. Under A, for fire protection district district trustees, 1 term each, 5/1/2019 to 4/30/2022. It's recommending Broadland, Longview, Clayton Coulter, Eastern Perry, Patricia Chancellor, Ed Scott, Mark McDuffie, Isdale, Jeff White, Lola, what's that? Ludlow, sorry, Ludlow, Kenny Doring, Ogden Royal, Ken Osber, Pasodum, Dennis Butler, Philo Clifford Gortman, Sadors, Frederick Seabolt, Sangamon Valley, Roger Patton Jr., Scott Bernard Massman, St. Joseph Staten, Norman Paul, Thomasboro Chris Eller, Tolono Roger Hayden, and Windsor Park Todd Courtney. Can I get a motion? John?
Second.
Who's second? King Taylor. Any discussion? Oh, that's right, Dr. King Taylor. Yeah, go, please.
I have a question. I guess this is probably for our executive to answer. Was there only one applicant for each of these positions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor by saying aye? Any nay? Motion passed. B, the county executive is recommending James Wood to Sador's Fire Protection District trustees, 1 unexpired term ending 4/30/2021. Can I get a motion? Got the names? Pongel? And, Lord, I'm bad with names. Mike, sorry. Any discussion? All in favor by saying aye? Any nay? Motion passed. C, the county executive is recommending Brian Eccles to Kerr and Compromise Drainage District Commissioner, 1 expired term ending 8/31/2021. Can I get a motion? Mike first. Panjad, okay, good. Second. Any discussion? All in favor by saying aye? Any nay? Motion passed. D, the county executive is recommending Joseph Burke to Lower Big Slot Drainage District Commissioner, 1 an expired term ending 8/31/2021. Can I get a motion? Got the names? Good. Any discussion? All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Any nay? Motion passed. C, the county executive is recommending Wayne Cock to Isle Creek Drainage District Commissioner, 1 unexpired term ending 8/31/2019. Can I get a motion? Eric first. Ingram second. Any discussion? Okay, right here, Charles have a discussion real quickly. So what I did was I politely went to the county executive and I asked her, could I sometimes sit in on some of these appointments and interviewing process as the chair of the policy person, and just to observe and to learn with no string attached, and as a student who liked learning, and also as an elected official. She politely told me in a politely manner, no. I asked her why, and she said, and I quote, "No, I don't want you there," end quote. So just a thought to think about as elected officials. My understanding when I came into this, I thought elected officials supposed to be transparent and inclusive. this is different from a job, even though, this is my perspective, even though a job has like contract and negotiation, elected officials, I think, is not as limited. So it's just a thought. I'm trying to be really transparent and inclusive. And there are some things that you can do, I believe, as an elected official to be true to your constituents and taxpayers. So that's just my thought. And we had a discussion in our caucus, and I just want to let the other caucus know as well, too, that we may have to do a little bit more research and expand our mind to, just because something was not done in the past doesn't mean that it cannot be done moving forward. So there's different definitions in terms of what exactly elected official can and can't do. Yes.
This oftentimes, especially for like drainage districts, fire protection districts and such, but especially drainage districts, it can be hard to find people to fill these seats. There oftentimes is only one person, so it's almost a matter of you either do or don't take them, and usually you do. Now, sometimes there have been times when there's been more than one person applying for these positions. Drainage districts especially, they're a little small part of the county, a separate little unit of the county. To serve on those districts, you have to be, if we make an exception for good reason, you have to own land. So that even cuts down the idea of people who are, and the person has to obviously be willing to serve. So it is hard to find people. By state statute, this is given to the county administrator, or executive now, I should say, to do the appointment. Now, we as the county board approve them, but really the interview, there isn't really, in the county, in the drainage district, there's not much there to really interview. You have the questionnaire, which largely answers the questions, I would think, that would be asked of the person if they fill it out completely, such as, do you have conflicts, and do you know anything about the district? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Oftentimes, if they're a landowner, though, and a lot of these are farmers, so they know what's going on with that district, the basics of it anyway. They don't maybe know all the ins and outs when they're coming in new. But I guess as a county board member, when we had the county board chair did all this. So as without the executive. So you have to put some faith in your now county executive, I should keep misspeaking, that they're going to do their due diligence. But with only one person applying to most of these, there's not a whole lot of due diligence to do other than making sure, like, if they own land, and if there's no red flags thrown. I mean, they're going to hear it. Darlene will hear it from the local landowners if someone applies and the local people in that area are saying, whoa, wait a minute, this person for some reason should not serve on this drainage district because of maybe they don't own land in there or something. Or it's in some of these instances, there's not much as a county board member to really gain by you seeing the process. We see it pretty much here at the committee of the whole. It's on paper. And as to being transparent, again, there's not much really to see. It's all kind of spelled out in the paper before you with the questionnaire, as far as I'm concerned. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. The prior discussion doesn't have anything to do with the motion on the floor.
It does. I'm talking about the appointments.
I believe the motion was on the floor for Mr. Cox.
Right, but I open up to discussion, any discussion, so I had something to say. That's all. Which was pertaining to the appointments.
I'm talking about any further discussion. Point of order. This discussion has nothing to do with the motion on the floor. Discussion.
Okay. Well, just a thought, just something to think about. Yeah.
I have something specific to Mr. Cox. Well, first of all, Mr.
Yes,
Cox
you
is
can go.
here.
You can go upon jail.
But, you know, Mr. Cox circled yes on his form, do you own land within the drainage district, and then he said not personally. So I just wanted to point that out and make sure people were aware of that. I don't know if that requires us to do anything. You know, Aaron, you mentioned that there's some, we might need to do some extra thing for that, but I just wanted to make sure that wasn't the case.
Regarding your comment, John, he's running policies and personnel, so he's the chair of this committee. So I can't oversee what he's doing regarding, you know, law of order or point of order.
Right.
So he's the one that has the motion on the floor. He's the one that calls out for the vote. He's the one that calls for the approval and the discussion. But I cannot override him on that as the COW chair.
Okay.
Point of order, the discussion that occurred afterwards had nothing to do, in my opinion, with the motion on the floor.
Okay.
Discussion related to this, maybe could have been in other communications, but the motion on the floor was for the Owl Creek Drainage District Commissioner, Wayne Cox.
Right.
And the comments by you and by my colleague, Mr. Esri, did not pertain directly to the motion on the floor, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, that's okay. This is good and healthy because we always had different opinions, and yeah, we can research that later, which is always a good thing. First, it was Eric.
Yeah, first, thank you, Pranjal. That was my point I wanted to make. That was an odd answer to circle yes, I own land, not personally, but my parents, sister, and uncle, which was nice. My son, I guess, could say he owns land in Newcomb Township, but not personally. It's dad's. So maybe Charles, in asking about sitting in on some of the interviews, if I was there, I would have just asked, you know, how close are you to them? I know Mr. Essery is correct. It's hard to get people on those. This one in particular, I know because I helped my friend start the Upper Sangamon River Conservancy, and this drains into the Sangamon. So we talked to a lot of these people, and it was, first of all, they were hard to find. Second, sometimes it was hard to get people to serve, and you needed to be someone who knew. So that would have been a question I asked had I been there. I'm not saying I needed to be there, but that would be interesting to know what the answer was, just to get a little more clarification there. So maybe that's where you were going.
Yeah, so I apologize if I was not directly told where the recommendation of Wayne Cox. I would just say in the general before we move on to number 2 with the sheriff.
Yeah, well,
So
we still
since-
haven't voted on Mr. Cox. So.
Right. So, Stephanie.
Actually, I do think this is quite germane to Mr. Cox, because if I recall correctly, the woman who came forward under the previous structure, who expressed concern that she felt she had not been fully considered, was a property owner in a drainage district and was a woman. And when I do see, and I do think this conversation makes sense with under the framework of Mr. Cox, being that he isn't a landowner, but he indicates that his parents and his sister are. So at the very least, I feel like just the conversation about how these interviews take place would make sense in this context, because the question that I think could have been asked is, hey, would your sister want it? And if the answer is no, like that she's not interested in it, but just to sort of embrace that conversation we all said for those of us who were on the board at that time, when she came forward. So I actually do think that this conversation is particularly germane to Mr. Cox.
Okay, we're going to keep moving forward. Oh, real quick, last one, I guess.
I get just to address Stephanie, the case you brought up. Pius heard about that, and he was advised by the people in that drainage district to not appoint her. So.
Okay, we're going to keep it moving. So whether this makes sense or not to certain people, it does to me. But eventually, for another day, we're going to talk about legal representation. It's always good to have someone there for check and balance. But this is healthy to get it out. So with that being said, all in favor by saying aye? Any nay? Motion passed. Number 2, Sheriff A. I move resolution approving proclamation designating to the week of May 5th, 2019 as National Correctional Office Week. Can I get a second? Who's second? Dr. Storer. Any discussion? I already made the motion. I made it. Oh, I can't do that? Okay, can I get a motion? Second. That's okay. All in favor by saying aye? Any nay? Motion passed. B.
What? Normally, we read these.
Say that again.
I think we read these.
Well, do you have a chance to read them? We got to read them out. All right.
I think it was
Let's-
decided during our policy meeting that since it was his resolution, it's not our resolution. But did I misunderstand, Charles? How's it worded?
Talking about the text because it had to do with recognizing the correctional officers that we have and the sheriff's deputies.
Got it.
So who's supposed? I'm supposed to read them off? Oh my God. No. Can I get a motion that I don't have to read all that? Yeah, I don't want. That's too much. We can do it next time. Let me move to B, if you don't mind, Chair Rosales.
I think what they're referring to is that this is being televised, and since it is an honor for those law enforcement employees of ours, it would be an honor to read it out loud in a designation of their day given as a
Okay.
resolution. I will be reading these resolutions at the courthouse at noontime on that given day, so it will be reinforced a second time. But I asked
Wow.
Charles to read these today.
Wow.
Charles, can you do that? To appease?
Yeah, I will have my. Go ahead and Vice John Rector. You can read both of them.
Can I
Read.
Can I read the correctional officer one?
I'm not sure this part
Okay,
of the
hold up. Yeah,
meeting.
you can read it.
I was just trying to help my friend.
Right. This is a lot. You can read. Go ahead and read.
That way we could be on record.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm reading the first one. Thank you. Resolution approving the proclamation designating the week of May 5th as National Correctional Officer Week. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated the week of May 5th as National Correctional Officer Memorial Week, and whereas the members of the Champaign County Sheriff's Office play an essential role in the criminal justice system. Whereas the contributions they make to the American law enforcement, while not highly visible, are substantial. These men and women are responsible for ensuring the custody, control, and safety of inmates held in U.S. jails and prisons, directly supervising the incarceration and rehabilitation of criminal offenders. Correctional officers are an essential part of our nation's criminal justice system. Whereas the general public should fully appreciate correctional officers capable of handling of the physical and emotional demands made upon them daily. The profession requires careful and constant vigilance, and the threat of violence is always present. At the same time, these dedicated employees try to improve the living conditions of those who are being confined. Whereas the men and women of the Champaign County Sheriff's Office unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, it is proclaimed by the Champaign County Board that the County Board calls upon all citizens of Champaign County and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 5th through May 11th, 2019, as the Correctional Officers Week with appropriate observance, which all of our people may join in commemorating correctional officers past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities. In so doing, have established for themselves an invaluable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. It is further proclaimed that the Champaign County Board calls upon all citizens of the Champaign County to observe the week of May 5th as National Correctional Officers Week in honor of those correctional officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community and have become disabled in performance of duty, and thus recognize and pay respect to the survivors of the fallen heroes presented, adopted, approved by the County Board this day, 2019. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, McGuire. So, can I get a motion? We already did the motion? Okay, we won't keep it going.
I think Rector wanted to read the second one.
Go ahead and read it, John.
Resolution approving the proclamation designating the week of May 12th as National Police Week. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated the week of May 12th as Peace Officers Memorial Week, and whereas the members of the Champaign County Sheriff's Office play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Champaign County, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Champaign County Sheriff's Office unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, it is proclaimed by the Champaign County Board that the County Board calls upon all citizens of Champaign County and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 12th through May 17th, 2019 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their communities and, in so doing, have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. It is further proclaimed that the Champaign County Board calls upon all citizens of Champaign County to observe the 17th day of May as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes.
Okay.
Presented, adopted, approved by the County Board this 9th day of April, AD 2019.
Thank you, John. Can I get a motion now? Steve first, second motion. Jane Timothy, any discussion? All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Any nay? Motion passed. 3, County Clerk A, March 2019 report has been distributed to all people. The yellow package there is on your table, has been accepted and placed on file. 4, County Executive A, monthly HR report, March 2019 has been accepted and placed on file. B, other business. Are there any other business? Jim McGuire? Goss.
Yeah, it has been, it happened in my district, and I think it happened here in Urbana that we had 2 polling places that were moved without county board approval. And so I don't know what we can do about it at this point, but we approved 2 resolutions that happened for polling places that were moved. Like we moved one in Urbana from the Civic Center to the Urbana Free Library, and we moved 2 precincts in Mahomet from one side of Lake of the Woods to the other. However, we had a precinct that was moved from a church in Mahomet to a nursing home, and we had a precinct in Urbana that I believe, I don't know where it was initially, but it was moved to a funeral home. And that, I mean, that's supposed to come in front of this board. I'm not real sure why we didn't have it here. I'm not real sure why we can't ever get an elected official to show up at a meeting. So I think that needs to be brought to their attention, that it needs to be done in the future. And I think we need to start having some attendance. I want to put it on record that we need to start having some attendance from our elected officials at these meetings.
Amen. I agree with you. Lorraine Coward.
The church caught on fire and they moved it from the church across the street to the funeral home. But it was after we had okayed the polling places.
Yeah, did it happen before the election? And did it happen after our county board meeting is my question, because
It happened after our county board meeting.
I know the
on the
Mahomet one
polling
had no
places.
issues.
Huh?
The Mahomet church that it was moved from had no issues. So, I mean, maybe they chose not to host a polling place, but That should have been known well in advance. I'm not sure why it wasn't brought in front of this committee.
Okay, then. I just know about the church in Urbana on Bradley.
Okay, any other business? Seeing none, okay. C, Chair Report, 1, appointment expiring May 31st, 2019, information only. Farmland Assessment Review Committee, Urbana-Champaign Sanitary District, various water district board of review. And D, items on consent agenda are A1, A through E, and A2, A and B. This concludes my report, and I yield back to you, Chair Rosales.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young, and thank you as well for those comments that you made earlier and those that participated in that discussion. Now we move on to finance with Mr. Goss.
Thank you, Chair Rosales. Lynn, you might want to go ahead while I'm reading these and come forward because I'm sure there will be some questions on these first two. Item A1, budget amendment transfers, budget amendment 19-00017, Fund 090 Mental Health to Department 053 Mental Health Board, increased appropriations $250,000, increased revenue none from fund balance. The reason is utilize available mental health board fund balance to transfer to the SILA fund in order to pay off the SILA mortgage per February 20th, 2019 decision memo approved by the Champaign County Mental Health Board. Is there such a motion? Kyle, second. Stephanie, discussion. We do. Lynn didn't make it here tonight, so if you've got questions. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Will there be any cost savings in paying off this purchase early?
It does, I don't know exactly how much, but the mortgage has an interest rate of 3.903%, and this portion of fund balance is, in our fund is earning maybe 2.5 or less. It was 2.5 last year, it may be less now. It's in the Illinois fund. So it's just, I think it's a little bit of a savings, and I think also we didn't have a real estate attorney for a few years, and during that period of time, nothing happened. So that was great. And at the first opportunity, I got a real estate attorney with expertise in all the related areas, and this was something he strongly recommended. So the board, both boards are involved in this, and they agreed.
Stephanie.
I think it's great that you're doing this. I do have a question. It does seem that for a 2014 mortgage loan, 3.9 seems on the slightly high side of that's just out of curiosity. Seems, I only ask that because that's the year we got our mortgage, and it just seems about 0.75% higher than what we paid. I just was curious if that's what that's reflective of. I don't know if that would be a you question or a Tammy question.
I should be able to answer it, but I wasn't
Yeah.
the director
Yeah,
at the
I know.
time
I know.
and didn't work out that mortgage agreement, but I thought it was low at the time, so.
Seems, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, all the better that you're paying it off. I just was, when I was reading through that, it just struck me as maybe a little bit high. Thanks. But all the more to be commended that you're doing this.
Other questions or comments? Kyle.
I just had two quick comments. First, I think Stephanie's just trying to brag about negotiating a good deal on her mortgage. And then I just want to thank you for a lot of times we get budget transfers that we're lucky if they have one complete sentence, and you gave us an entire memo with background and bullet points and many paragraphs. I just want to thank you for fully explaining this issue in that way.
I'm having lunch with our attorney on Friday, so I'll let him know.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, item B, Budget Amendment 19-00018. Fund 101, Mental Health Board, Developmental Disabilities Board, SILA Facilities, to Department 054, SILA Project. Increased appropriations $350,000. Increased revenue $250,000. The reason is to utilize funds transferred from the Champaign County Mental Health Board and available fund balance to pay off the remaining SILA mortgage per joint decision memo on February 20th, 2019, approved by the Champaign County Mental Health Board and the Champaign County Developmental Disabilities Board. Do I have a motion? Mr. Ingram. Second, Mr. Storr. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Lynn, for being here. Okay, item C is Budget Amendment 19-00019 from Fund 476 Self-Funded Insurance to Department 118 Property and Liability Insurance. Increased appropriations is $410,204. Increased revenue, none from the fund balance. The reason is the insurance premium for the 2-year claim extended reporting coverage for liability protection for the nursing home, as known as tail coverage. Is there such a motion? King Taylor, second. Furtado. Discussion. This is something that we talked about, oh gosh, probably in December or January, I believe. We're just now getting the actual numbers. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Okay, let's see which order we're going to go in here. I guess that's under new business. So, other business, I guess we'll go to this one. This is new business. This is your other blue packet here that has that deals with early childhood education. Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to make your way up here, because I'm sure we didn't see a lot of this ahead of time. So, item A1, budget amendments, transfer budget amendment 19-00024 from Fund 104 Early Childhood to Department 604 Early Head Start Expansion, even year. Increased appropriations are $1,580,980. Increased revenue, $2,571,200. Reason, Early Head Start expansion to accommodate new federal funding for Early Head Start expansion program. Is there such a motion? Mr. Tinsley, second. Taylor, discussion. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thanks for coming. I just had one quick question. In your summary, in the first paragraph, it mentions 90 infants, toddlers, and pregnant women. And in the second paragraph, it mentions 80 children from birth to age 3. So I just was curious, should we be adding those two numbers up to get to 170, or is it overlap? I just was curious, like, how many folks this is actually serving.
Good evening. I'm Brandy Granz. I'm the Early Childhood Division Director. And so this grant, this Early Head Start Expansion Grant, was for 80 infants and toddlers, and 10 pregnant women. So total 90 enrollments for Early Head Start. You're welcome.
Other questions, discussion?
Over here.
Jim, sorry.
Does this grant have some ability to get other resources for the families?
Yes, this is like our normal Head Start and Early Head Start grants that we have now. It's a very comprehensive service to infants, toddlers, and pregnant women, and we're also focusing on teen moms. We're focusing on health, family services, nutrition, the whole 9 yards for these families.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I also, sorry, you have 10 new center-based classrooms. Are those classrooms dispersed throughout the county?
So we wrote the grant thinking that, we're going to serve 80 children, and for Head Start or early Head Start, we're required to only serve 8 children, 8 infants and toddlers per classroom. So that gives us a total of 10 classrooms. And so management has been looking within the community, specifically in Champaign, to focus our efforts to providing those services there. At this point, we do not have an identified facility, but we have been looking.
Other questions? Jody?
I am just interested in knowing, so from birth to age 3, there are these 80 children are there for 10 hours every day.
That is correct.
Okay. And why 10? Why not just 8 or 9? That's
Well-
longer than a regular workday.
Well, so many of our families are working double shifts. So we do have families in our current program working from 7 in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. So it really does depend. It does fluctuate. We have parents dropping off children at 7:30, and they may pick up their child at 3:30. So it really does depend on their schedule. But they also, with full day, families are sometimes working and also going to school or adult education. And so that takes up more than just an 8-hour time period.
Okay. And are these kids taking naps during that time?
They certainly
Okay,
are.
good.
Yes,
'Cause
absolutely.
they need it.
I think, yeah, it's helpful for them,
Okay.
and that's just part of their day.
Okay. And then I just have, yes, I totally agree. I was a kindergarten teacher and I made mine rest. And the parents would say, oh, they won't take one. Yes, they did.
Absolutely. They
and
need
then
one.
I just, at the last statement, it just says that just watching the research and what the early Head Start has done, like the performance is significantly better at the range of cognitive, language, and social and emotional development. And here is the part that I'm questioning. It says the research has shown that it's tended to have the best overall outcomes at the start of school. Have they done any research to see, does it make any impact long term in their school or their education?
Yes, we are starting to see longer impact for these kids who have started in early Head Start and Head Start, going on into elementary school, into college. We have a lot of we have a lot more people coming out that they've participated in Head Start, and now they're lawyers, doctors. So we believe that there is a larger impact, and I can get you some more information if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Anybody else? Pranjal?
I'm so glad to see this program, taking off. And I'm curious, sort of, what do you think is the total sort of need for this program in Champaign County? Like how many, if you had infinite money, how many people do you think would
Oh my.
attend the program?
So, with this particular expansion grant, there was only a certain amount of money that was going to be distributed across the nation. They estimated around 60 awards would be received. We were one of those. In this particular region of Head Start, we have about a 6-state region. Only out of the, I can't remember the total number, but out of this particular region, we only had $13 million set aside for our Head Start programs. So looking at our current wait list, we're now at 155 infants and toddlers waiting to be served within our community. And if we could have written for more, we would have. We know that this is a huge need within our county.
No, and just to be totally clear, I'm not
Yeah.
blaming you for not
No.
bringing it up.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, I
yeah.
understand. We would love to serve more.
Yeah.
The money just isn't there at this time. You're welcome.
Kyle?
Also, want to thank you as well for giving us a very detailed explanation of this
You are
transfer.
very welcome.
Bullet points are good. Just a quick question. Is this from the Department of Education?
No, it is not. It is from the Administration of Children and Families.
Okay. Is that a federal agency?
It's a federal, yes.
Mr. McGuire?
It's my understanding that there are, Jody asked about the facilities, that you would give tours of the Urbana facility if they would ask for one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm very proud of our centers and would be happy to provide anyone with a tour. So just let me know. Thanks, Jim.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, the second one, Budget Amendment 19-00025, Fund 104 Early Childhood to Department 604 Early Head Start Expansion Even Year. Increased appropriations $990,250. Increased revenue is from the fund balance. As you can see in the one above, the total increased revenue in Budget Amendment 19-00024 was this 990,000 higher. The reason the Early Head Start expansion to accommodate new federal funding for Early Head Start expansion program. The second budget amendment is to cover the rest of the expenditures. If you saw that list, it was a long one. So it actually took 2 budget amendments to get it there. So is there a motion? Mr. Tinsley, is there second? Mr. Thorsland, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, let's see. We are now back to the treasurer. Monthly reports are on for February 2019. They are on the website. The auditor, their monthly report for March of 2019 is on the website. Remember, we removed item 4. Any other business to be brought before the committee? Okay. And as a chair's report, I'm going to take a minute here, since we really haven't had an opportunity to publicly thank Deb Busey, Van Anderson, 2 people that really shepherded the nursing home sale. Honestly, it would not have happened without their help. I know Van spent a ridiculous amount of hours the week of the sale. I know he was working personally in that nursing home at midnight a couple of nights. Also, the staff here in this building. I mean, we had a lot of stuff that had to be put together. Tammy Ogden and all our staff here did a fantastic job putting together what was a monumental task. I mean, it is not easy to, obviously we learned the hard way, it's not easy to get to one of these to a real estate closing. And so I'd like to publicly thank them at this point. Okay, items for consent agenda 9A1, Part A, Part B, Part C, and item 9A under new business, Part 1, D and E for consent. That concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that acknowledgement, Mr. Goss. And they did a commendable job as well. Well, I have no other business, and I would like to call this meeting to adjournment. It is 10 to 8.